my name is Tony Schuchman. I'm the Chief Executive Partner in BDO in Australia. Today I'm joined by Office Managing Partner in Melbourne, David Garvey. The topic for the discussion today is around globalisation and the mid-market. BDO has a large presence of businesses in the mid-market and we've got really good insights into that process. So welcome, David.
Thanks, Tony.
So the first question is around global trade and how you see it. Obviously, it was changing before the global pandemic, but it's now changed even more. So what do you think are the key challenges for the Australian mid-market as a result of the complexities that are coming from the pandemic and the slowing of growth in business generally?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'd say that there's still lots of opportunities for the mid-market. So rather than focusing in on the negatives, I mean, the current environment is creating a lot of challenges and disruptions to supply chains and the like. And you know, as countries like Australia focus on local issues from a health perspective, it's definitely having an impact on global trade. And I guess I was doing a little bit of research in advance of this catch up, and there was an OECD report that talked about the global economy decreasing 13% or a 13% decline in the global economy through this pandemic to the end of June. So it's definitely having an impact. But I think, you know, Australia's prosperity and wealth over the last 30 years has been driven off global trade, and I don't see that changing. So I think whilst there's a lot of short-term disruption, I guess, as a result of this, I think in the long term and just sort of looking beyond the immediate challenges, there's a huge amount of opportunity in the mid-market and for Australian companies generally.
Yeah, no, I certainly agree with that. So just picking up one point around supply chains, and Melbourne is certainly one of the bigger manufacturing hubs in Australia, and we know that supply chains are under tremendous transition, and one thing there's been a lot of speculation, what does this mean? So just from your point of view, how do you think supply chain issues are impacting on Australian mid-market businesses going forward? And what are the opportunities for business leaders they need to consider around supply chain?
Well, I think there's a couple of issues for Australia, and I think it's probably a bit of a global discussion too, but as it's been documented in the press a lot recently, is Australia's dependence upon China, I guess, as an end customer, but also a key supplier in our supply chains. And I guess there's a broader discussion going on, and we've all read it in the press, so we're not bringing anything new to the table, but there's a broader discussion going on around how do we diversify Australia's dependency upon that. And I think also from a supply chain perspective, there's a very good discussion going on around what are critical things to Australia, such as healthcare and pharmaceuticals and things like that, which we have been heavily reliant upon from heavily reliant on imports, etc., around stuff and product like that. So the discussion is I guess diversifying our supply chains, our end customers, but also do we bring back critical product and the production of that into Australia rather than relying on global trade.
That makes some sense, doesn't it? So in terms of the middle market generally, there's been a lot of commentary almost on a daily basis about all the challenges. So I'm not sure you and I need to go over that again, but probably just what do you see as the opportunities for business in that sector as a result of the global trade challenges? I'm sure you're seeing businesses that are doing well in the current environment and thriving. So what are the opportunities?
Well, that's right. I mean, amongst BDO's client base, surely there's clients that are having challenges in the current environment, but there's also a lot of our clients that are doing very well, and I think there's lots of opportunities for Australian middle market businesses. And I mean, obviously, I've said earlier about focusing beyond the immediate challenges that we have, but Australia's future is global trade, and our wealth and continuing to maintain our standard of living as Australians is dependent upon global trade. And I think Australia is obviously just still so uniquely placed in this part of the world and close to Asia and the Asia Pacific region and a growing middle class that I think that there's huge opportunity, so that we shouldn't be negative. And I guess, from a policy perspective, the governments are going to be, and the Australian government is going to be looking at growth as the agenda to sort of get ourselves out of the current situation. So I see there's lots of opportunities, and particularly around a need to focus on diversifying, I guess, our customer base and also our supply chain. So I think we're in a good position regionally, and surely mid-market companies are maybe a little less focused on it, but it'll shift back within within a reasonable period of time.
I agree with that. So just finally, just around picking up the growth theme that you mentioned there, there's a lot of commentary almost on a daily basis about all the government stimuluses at various levels across the country, and a lot of speculation about what does that mean in the next 6 months or 12 months. But what do you think around what can business leaders do to make sure they identify the funding risks for their businesses as some of these government stimulus packages sort of come off? What are your thoughts on that issue?
Yeah, well, so not every Australian business is dependent upon the current sort of, I guess, financial support or direct support from government, but the support that the Australian government's providing to the economy flows right through the economy, right? So it's sort of that multiplier impact. So, there's obviously critical decisions by government as to how quickly they release that stimulus, and we've all read the press around arguments that it should be continued. So I think, from an Australian business perspective, it's really, in many ways, our business is no different, Tony, and that's really, I guess, focusing in on the fundamentals of our business and making sure that we've got a really strong balance sheet through this process, and we're very sensible around the business decisions we make. And I think as we come out the other end, really good businesses and well-run businesses that have maintained a strong balance sheet or tried to strengthen their balance sheet will be in a good position to capitalise on opportunities. And that won't be every business, but for those that are well-run, there will be opportunities. Yeah,
exactly. So having that strong balance sheet, having a variety of funding mechanisms will manage their risk. So that's great. Well, David, thanks for your time today.
No worries.
The third element of our short series around leadership perspectives, and today we touched on globalisation and issues around supply chain. That's those things. So thanks for your time. That's great. Thanks a lot.
Okay, thanks, Tony. All right, thanks everyone. See you.